Welcome everyone to our ReSourceYYC Lunch and Learn networking event. We've got our host today is Ron Bettin, who is one of our ReSourceYYC co-owners. Over to you, Ron.
Sure, good. Well, thanks. So yes, so it's been actually a while since we've actually done a panel. We used to do them live all the time in ReSourceYYC. So and COVID, of course, has affected everything. And thank you, Rosemary, because we have done some events at ReSourceYYC over the past year, digital. But this is the first time I got to host a panel, and it's kind of exciting. It feels like a bit of a reunion too. We've got some great, some of the great members coming back. So thanks for everybody that's joining us, especially on the one last warm day of December before it gets cold. So appreciate you taking this time. And really what we want to do is actually just take some time to almost digest, just kind of unpack a bit of the year with some of our members, because as much as COVID was clearly a hardship for everybody, it also actually had some lessons learned and some good takeaways. So thanks for everybody joining today. I'm going to do just a quick introduction of our panel, but more importantly, I'm going to let them maybe talk a bit themselves just about what they do and what their companies does before we get started, just to frame the conversation. So maybe I'll just start with Jeff. Do you want to talk a bit about yourself and your company?
Sure. Jeff Griffiths. Hi, folks. One of the co-owners at Workforce Strategies International. So we're kind of competency-based workforce and organizational development consultancy, operating locally, but lately operating all over the world because we have to.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. And Trudy, got you next on the screen.
All right. Thanks, Ron. Hi, everybody. My company is Trudy Pelletier Consulting, and my main market is working with business families who are doing continuity and succession planning. I facilitate difficult conversations. That's my specialty, which is, not just exclusive to private enterprise, but everywhere. And particularly with COVID here, with the economic environment, there's been some really difficult conversations and decisions that, leaders have had to make over the last year.
Yeah, perfect. And so hopefully, and this difficult conversation isn't necessarily the panel today, right?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Nothing difficult.
But you know what? If it gets bad, we know you're here for us.
Yeah. I have my hand up if anybody needs support in a difficult conversation. Absolutely.
Perfect. And on that note, well, I remember, not that anyways difficult, but if we do have any sound issues, we get all the participants maybe who aren't on the panel just put their mics on mute there so it doesn't get difficult for all of us. And while I remember, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Rosemary's watching them, and then at the end we'll try and have some time for questions and discussion as well. So Anthony, did you want to do an introduction and tell us a bit about your company?
Yeah, thanks, Ron. It's my first time on one of the panels, so thanks a lot for the invite. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here and just be reacquainted with everybody. My name's Anthony Cameron. My company's called Left Hand Architecture and Design. We provide architectural services. We're registered in the provinces of Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. And Toni?
Thanks, Ron. Toni Guffei with Ratio Marketing. We focus on research, strategy, and planning for marketing initiatives to get the best return on the investment. And I'm very invested in digital marketing these days, and just taking on a gig teaching in the digital marketing program at U of C.
Oh, thanks, Toni. So what I love about some of the ReSourceYYC panels is the diversity of the people and the experience. So great diversity here. I'm absolutely positive the people that join in, there'll be some little nugget you get out, and we'll try and make sure again we have questions for some of the panel members as well. So maybe I'll start actually, when you touched on it there, but just a bit of what your journey's been like this year, and just if there's been anything, other than COVID was totally unexpected, but I know back when you look back at the end of March and April, I know myself, it was like the world is falling apart. Oh no, right? We just didn't know what to expect. And then as the summer went on, I've been fortunate because we haven't had COVID and we haven't had any of those just horrible stories. But out of that, there's all kinds of new things that came up, and actually some unexpected positive things as well. as well as the difficulties. So I don't know if anyone wants to start, just some, if there's anything about your journey or that just stood out this past 6 months, 9 months that you guys just want to maybe kind of talk to in a bit of introduction as well. And like to start?
I'll go ahead.
Sure.
It's been an interesting journey for me because I have this consulting practice and clients, and then I teach, and then that did a really hard shift to online. And as a result, from April 2020, April 21, I got offered and am instructing 20 courses. So it's been a really interesting shift that way. And having been an instructor and online as well, I kind of eased into it quite easily, but I noticed that there is a technique to it. It's not just talking. There's a difficulty in the engagement part. So it's been a learning curve, but I think something that's going to endure well into the next few years.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'll layer on to that, and I definitely think some of the others is some for years, I've been fairly digital and remote, and you're trying to coax people that they should be more, online and remote. And it was like a switch. All of a sudden, everybody had to be, right. And it is amazing how far it's come. So I know, Jeff, actually, you and I have had some conversations a bit about this whole digital switch and the good and bad, but you want to add on to that, Jeff, or any other big surprises this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like just after this whole mess started, I got involved. I was involved in a 3-day conference that the decision was made to go from face-to-face to worldwide virtual in less than a week.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I was blown away by how well it went. And well, one of the things that we found, because I've done a few of these now, is that while there's all kinds of advantages to doing it digitally and remotely, you don't lose people between the coffee machine and the conference room, for one thing. But you don't get any of the extra benefits of face-to-face. So there's value in both ways. And what I miss most is the kind of informal networking that happens after the conference, over a beer, at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
We don't get any of that anymore. And frankly, I miss it. And we've operated virtually for a long time. Our clients had to learn how. So that was an exciting thing at the beginning. And some of them are still trying to figure it out. I think the world has really moved really rapidly. Like you used to, if you wanted to sign a contract, you had to jump in the car and drive to Edmonton and sign a contract so you could sit in somebody's office, shake their hand for 10 minutes and then waste another 3 hours driving home. No one expects you to do that anymore, which is a good thing. But I do think there's most of us are missing the personal contact, and I'm an introvert, right? I mean, social distancing is my default mode, but I do miss meetings. I'd miss not Zoom meetings, right?
It's actually, I say it's fairly amazing how personal some Zoom meetings get, because before nobody even wanted to be on camera. Now it's just a way more natural thing. Yeah. But Trudy, I'm interested because so much of your business is about face-to-face people. So how has this journey been for you?
So really interesting. First off, when COVID happened, because all of my work up until COVID has been in person, as you said. I think only twice, with a couple of family members being in Europe, were they brought in through video conference. So all of my projects paused, and that actually really created some space and a sanctuary for me to really look at my business and work on my business. And I was in the middle of a rebrand. So it allowed me 100% focus on, what do I need to transcribe to the new brand without dealing with the conflict of going out and selling and talking to people about my business. So that was a real peaceful, productive time for me. Wow. What's been interesting is I've, all of my projects have restarted and I've onboarded 3 new business families. So that would be considered like really flourishing in my world, because I think part of what COVID is doing is having either a first or second generation, so the elder generation, really be present to the health and the risks of things not being cared for. So I've done all of what's considered best practice, which is a discovery process through virtual. I don't ever see myself doing discovery again in person.
Oh, wow.
I can tell you that last weekend I facilitated a family conversation virtually presenting the results from discovery, and it was absolutely a failure in performance, not being able to be in the room. It was, I'm delivering some very difficult messages that got uncovered through discovery with people who have never met me beyond virtual. And so while I don't have answers to this, you know, what I'm looking at is how does not having that in-person connection impact trust and rapport and, you know, and relatability in terms of, specifically in my work, delivering tough messages. So I'm really grappling with now, what do I do? You know, based on that not going well and my and living in this virtual world, what options? So I'm really grappling with what parts can I do virtually, and then what parts am I a hard no to, and then how do I manage that? And so I have some big questions in front of me as a result of this ongoing, you know, environment we're working in.
Well, it's sure interesting because it's not like you chose to do it; you're forced to do it, right? So I imagine some of these things you agonize whether you go digital or not. Sometimes you never go there because of these questions. So you literally got forced to it. So it's interesting because I would have thought some of this is transferable. Your business could be around the world, but it actually sounds like there's a piece of that is not going to work as digitally. So or as well, or you got to figure it out. Yeah,
and
wow.
That was a discovery, Ron, right? Inside of things not going well. And I mean, it didn't go well for a number of reasons. So it's not all about the virtual environment. Like I said, one of the things I'm asking is how does not ever having an in-person meeting and getting related human being to human being, how does that impact what happened? So I'm sure other businesses are looking at it. You know, if you've got an account manager in a company that has a long established relationship with a client, that would be different than onboarding a new client in this virtual environment and building the relationship only through Zoom.
So this might actually be a great segue to Anthony, because when I picture architects, it's a room with drawings spread out over a big table. Like digital, it's got to be hard to lend itself to some of the architectural stuff. So that in-person meeting must be huge for you, Anthony, or is it not?
Well, at one point in time it was. At the moment, just by product of where projects are right now, it's not necessary to sit in the boardroom with 10 people. But at the same time, it's changed. I mean, the work that I've brought into the company has been by product of relationships and meeting people and getting to know them and them getting to know me. So it's kind of forced me to have to take a look at how I'm bringing more work in the door, and there's now a more an actual marketing aspect to that. So, and the one thing actually that it's given me an appreciation for is just and this is kind of like an aside, but just the efforts that it's taking for teachers to manage their classrooms. My wife's a teacher, and I was in a virtual conference for 2 weeks and just ended last week, and I couldn't believe how tired I was by the end of that conference. Like by the end of the day, it's a lot. It definitely gave me an appreciation for what she's doing that I would not have had unless I had gone through that experience myself. But as far as the business is concerned, I think the virtual world has kind of forced me to take a look at how I'm going to start onboarding new business. That's the one thing that I'm definitely taking from it, because I'm so used to being referred to people and then going and sitting down and spending time with them. That's not really happening unless we grab a coffee and go for a walk, which I've done a couple times too. there's a bit of a romantic aspect to that as well, I suppose. But just doing that has made me, like last week I went for one of those coffee walks, and I thought to myself, wow, I haven't really done this in a long time. Like, it makes you kind of do things that you don't typically take the time to do.
Yeah, it's interesting, those walking meetings, it was always a good thing for your health. Now it's actually the only practical way you can have a meeting without having limited people in a room or that. So that's really interesting.
Absolutely.
I'm actually going to throw it out. We got quite a few attendees here, and I suspect some of these little nuggets. So if you guys, anyone who's participating, has something that you think should add, or just dying to share, send something in chat. And then Rosemary, if you can watch that, we'll definitely try and get some participation too, because I think all of these topics trigger someone who has an experience that is really worth sharing. So actually, I just want to ask a bit about, Anthony, so documents, sharing documents and screen sharing and all that. Now, I will say there's a lot of meetings I've been at where you used to all get in a room and you'd squint at the projector at the far end of the screen. And to be honest with you, the person at the farthest way probably couldn't read a thing, right? So I've actually found some of the digital world much better because you can literally put the document right in front of everybody's face, wherever they are, and speak to it. And is drawings the same for you?
Yep, definitely. There's definitely a convenience aspect to doing that as well. I'm a little bit of a purist still. I still like my roll of drawings, and, as you could probably see in
and
my
a red
office
and a
when you
red
walk
pen,
by.
right? A red pen and a drawing.
No, I don't use red. There's a psychological aspect to red. I've been taught. So any other color except for red.
So if a customer walks in with a red pen, that's
a no-no.
Good.
Hey, Ron, we have a comment from Trevor in the chat that says he's got 23 years of experience working remotely, onboarding remotely, and marketing remotely has been really tough. So I'm wondering whether or not, and Toni, this is for you, you're seeing a growth because more of us have to actually be utilizing social media and digital marketing through this time. And I don't know if that's what Trevor is speaking to.
Do you want to, Trevor, feel free to unmute, maybe just give us a little context there, and then we'll have the panel weigh in. Or maybe I have to unmute. Trevor. Are you okay with that, Trevor?
Sorry, software via headset. Sometimes the USB driver doesn't trigger. Anyways, yeah, I'm a business owner, and obviously I do all my own IT support. But I've been working remotely for 23 years, and most of that's been over the phone, or probably in the last decade using screen share software. And if the customer is motivated to do business with you, it's been dead easy to work with folks that I've never seen before, and I have been doing so for quite a long time. But actually getting new business has been really tough. The online software, it just doesn't seem to be equipped for these sort of quick chats or engagement that you'd have in person at a networking event or conference or what have you. Trying to replace that virtually has been near impossible, I find. I don't know what everybody's experience is.
I would love to hear from Toni, because this is right up your alley, Toni. Thanks for pitching in there, Trevor. Appreciate your participation.
You're welcome.
And it's a really good question. And I think the best thing I can do is maybe share my experience on the consulting side and looking to shift my market, because what I do in Calgary, I mean, the economy is not that great here, but what I found is I have a huge opportunity to get involved nationally and internationally with people now. I belong to a couple of organizations, and I've attended a global conference, and I made connections in the US. And through the Digital Marketing Institute, some key people out of Europe who've invited me to be a part of a global marketing mastermind. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm hearing from you people about what's going on would be awesome. So it's a different way of networking. And if you get used to the tools and the opportunities, I mean, you can hugely gain business through it. I've gotten contacts and clients in Red Deer, Vancouver, Kelowna, One of my clients has moved to Saskatchewan because of the economy here, but we're staying with him. Like lots of good things are actually happening, but you have to shift your mindset to this is a new reality now.
And it does sound you're actually finding some real networking and engagement. So you're not just advertising at them, you're actually finding a way to really engage with them then.
Yeah, I'll just add some, because I'm a researcher at heart, some information I've been gathering about what's going on in the digital world. Like Google's ad revenue for the first time in years has decreased, through COVID because businesses just aren't advertising. So they're doing another major update to their algorithms right now as we speak. And we don't know what the impact is, but it'll probably be very significant. So figuring out the SEO, SEM right now is really tricky. But social media, influencers, attending networking events, and there's some great conferences right now. I actually make you want to like be involved and have that sense of excitement. Like the experience of the online environment is enhanced some way. Anyways.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, I wouldn't mind, and I'll throw this out to the panel, and then actually I see Angie's got a really good comment there as well. But are there specific things that you've had to do to engage your customers? And I'm going to tell you a little experience from mine. So I do consulting on some existing customers. I had a super tough time with some of them, getting them to go online, Zoom, Teams, WebEx, we tried things. And actually what I found was the technology was just a bit overwhelming for them. And I literally, and I don't know why some people, they just don't know where to start. And there was always a sound and video issue there. But I'd literally just get online, I'd go to Best Buy and I'd have a USB headset set directly to them, right? And just the next time we got online, we did not spend the half hour fighting with the audio and everything. And then all of a sudden we just had a better connection from that point on, right? And I think what I found with some of the customers, just helping them overcome the digital aspect of it, especially if they haven't been, was huge, right? And I'm on a couple boards where we've had the same exercise where they were so painful at the beginning, our monthly meetings, that we finally just got everybody set up so that we could all be on the same level, right? And I know those are more small one-on-one, and then some of the stuff you're talking is connecting with customers on a larger scale. So anyone else want to talk about on the panel, just talk about your customers a bit and how you've had to just kind of help that relationship on and connect with customers?
Sure, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not so much customers, but just other consultants. It seemed, well, because I'm more consultant to consultant, and the customer to customer component it has a start and an end, and then it basically becomes customer to, or myself to consultant. There's been, that's gone pretty smoothly because everybody's kind of already in that digital world. It was just a matter of tweaking. As far as actual customer to myself, it's been all right. It's been all right, and just by default.
Good. Yeah. Good. Jeff or Trudy, you want to weigh in? Well, you talked a bit about some of yours, Trudy, some of that connecting.
Yeah, I felt fortunate from a technical point of view. They had a younger generation dealing with the technical difficulties for the patriarch or the matriarch. So I actually didn't have to deal with that at all. Yeah, and the existing customers, it's been a smooth transition, like really smooth. It's been more the new, and then discovering there's just certain subjects that don't work virtually in my world if they don't. Yeah.
Jeff, anything to add?
Yeah, we had one particular client, and it was literally like the world had blown up on them, because they couldn't look at each other in the eyes in their office because they were all wherever they were, and we literally had to write a script for them. This is how you connect to these things and provide them pretty much what you guys were doing, right? To ease them into the process and make it as painless as possible, because the first couple of times, like you said, I mean, it was it very, very inefficient and painful. And I mean, the other thing that's changed, I think, is that at the beginning of this, back in in March and in April, you could do bad Zoom.
Yeah.
You can't do bad Zoom anymore. If you're supposed to be a consultant, you're now expected to be, proficient at this and have good presentation skills and everything else, and a decent headset and a microphone that works. And we've got clients that still insist on, well, no, we won't use voice over IP. Everybody dial in and we'll look at each other online, but everybody's got to be on the It's like,
and then you end up with Echo Island.
oh yeah,
they got the phone and the speaker on the computer.
It's an absolute mess.
Yeah. So.
But I think one of the biggest things is, particularly with some of our clients who are governmenty types, not that government is in the Stone Age, but it is, and they just haven't been able to adapt. I mean, I was on a call with the government the other week with Ottawa, and it was dial up, teleconference. I haven't done one of those in like forever, but that's the way government still works. So
and you fax the instructions in after everybody.
Oh yeah. So, or the other thing is trying to get people to understand, electronic document signing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, well, we'll send this to you, and then you can sign it and scan it and send it back. Haven't you ever heard of DocuSign?
Exactly.
And like,
I do think the technology, just some of the stuff that we're forced to, will actually just advance some stuff along. Hey, actually, and so we actually started talking about, Angie had a question about really just building that rapport and trust, and we did talk about it there. I don't know, Angie, if you had anything more specific, feel free to just weigh in and either some context or if you had a comment on that.
Yeah, not so much. Just got me thinking that, like Trudy, I feel your pain about that connection. I'm very much a relationship person myself. I know that building that connection in person, you get all of that, warmth, competence, matrix, all that kind of stuff. But it does make me think that it's got my wheels spinning around how do we build trust and rapport online. Ron, you kind of led with, it used to be very stilted and we'd be online and we were uncomfortable. We're looking at ourselves in the camera and we're trying to, whereas I do feel like in general, we're getting more comfortable to be able to just speak freely. So I just wonder if there's ways to do some work when you first meet with people to build trust. It's like the speed of trust sort of approach, right? I don't know, because I don't know, Trudy. I know it's challenging I can't imagine with the work that you do that how important that is. But I do wonder if, given the world the way it is now, that we need to find a way.
And if you don't mind, if I'll layer on to that bit, because I've been dealing with some groups, and you always used to do those team building things to kind of build that rapport, right? And those are clearly out of the office, and just ways to get people to know each other, right? But I've been in a few team building sessions online and they feel so forced, right?
Yeah.
And you go, man, that is one piece of this we're missing, right? We're trying to build a high performance team, and now we got all the digital tools and we're going to build that trust. Yet that one piece, back to Jeff said, you just miss that interaction. So I'd be happy to hear of any, just to comment again on Angie's, how do you build that trust and rapport and that relationships?
I think it is about stepping back and thinking like not continue to think, oh, well, if we can't do it this way, it won't work. We need to focus in on what is it about those team building exercises that made it so valuable. And I do think there's a lot of creative ways online now that we can build, we can work on things like that I've heard lots of just interesting ways to, virtual scavenger hunts and ways to connect with people. And then you start bringing in some of the tools, the insights or any of those things to start building it. And what is the point? Like, where are we trying to get to? And so, get past this isn't going to work unless we're in person. Right.
And Trudy, this is like, your world is so about personal. I mean, not only just teams, it's families sometimes too, right, Trudy? So what are your thoughts on that? Yeah,
it's mostly family. So interesting. I mean, Trevor put a podcast in about, because most people do broad brush trust. And so thank you for that, Trevor. I'm going to take a listen. And actually this afternoon, I have my first discovery interview with a new client I'm onboarding. And I absolutely have built in what I'm going to say are some conversational pieces that really allow for that connection and that rapport to see if that can make a bit of a difference. So for me as a businesswoman, where time really is, you know, my biggest resource, I'm granting more time and space for that than what I did with the last family. And so I agree with you, Angie. Thank you for presencing. It's not coming from it won't work. It's coming from, you know, what was missing and how do I make it work? And then if there are parts that can only be in person, what conversations are there to have? So really still staying inside of curiosity to, how to have everybody win in this kind of world.
Yeah. And Jeff, you had some comments on that as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're the piece that's missing, and we've got, you do what you do. Organizations have adapted to the extent that they can adapt. We're managing to get stuff done in a virtual way, but all of that informal stuff that used to happen when people ran into each other at the water cooler, and the informal conversations and that went on in the office don't happen anymore. And so much of developing high performance organizations is around this informal mentoring, and unless organizations have a conscious way of making that happen, making it intentional in a virtual environment, it won't happen. And then organizations will go stale and people will disengage from it. And so I think that's the 2021 challenge, assuming that people stay working remotely. We've got through the crisis. Everybody's now, we're at whatever, next normal looks like. Now, how do we go back to improving people and improving organizations and improving productivity and everything else when we don't have those informal networks? I think that's going to be huge.
And it really, there's just so much to be said for that. And like Angie, it's the trust, building that rapport and trust. Because once, and I found this was even before, right? You could talk to someone on the phone, hours, but if you'd never met them face to face, you never had the rapport. If you'd met them face to face, you could talk on the phone differently than that point on. So it's how do you do that, right? I'm going to share a little anecdote, because actually I was doing some consulting as part of a regular team meeting for it was a once a week team meeting, and it was rough. That first month of April was rough, and then the lead introduced that every meeting someone was going to come. They were going to have a photo topic. We started, industry start with a safety topic and all that stuff, but she said, we're going to do a photo topic. So someone has to come up with the idea of a photo each week that we all had to go and share at the beginning. So it was your pet, right? 1 week everybody had to share their pet or a travel adventure or somewhere they had hiked or something like that. And I had to say it actually, I mean, some of the meetings then you had to cut it off because you're building that, but it actually gave a little piece of personality to honestly people that had been in the office before and you never knew that about them before. But it added that little touch, and then the rest of the meeting actually just had a whole different tone to it, because it kind of set people in the right frame of mind that we were actually all together as a team, right? So that's a little tidbit. I'm sure there's tons of other things out there, but Toni, did you have anything to weigh in? I don't know how many teams you're part of that, but yeah.
I'm used to teaching online, so I'm actually I was just sitting here thinking I'm sort of comfortable with it. And if there's any lesson learned, I think it's really to adapt as quickly as possible and to be curious rather than to like try and push against the change, like jump in and try things out, because it's just that initial step of trying it. I think sometimes that people are resistant to, but once they get in, it's like, okay, it's not that bad. It's all kind of the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ron, I walk every day with my friend Kim, who's a VP and has got, been leading her team virtually like everybody else. And she's started a practice where, one of them was called Roses and Thorns, and having a quick round of what's your rose of this week, or what's the thorn, a focus on gratitude. What are you grateful for today? And part of that really was sourced by her concern for the mental health of her team, not having connection, and then dealing with the pressure that COVID impacted them. So there was, just some opening exercises like that she just really felt it made a difference for her and her team.
Yeah. And actually, I'm going to ask for more input, but also that's a good segue into, we talked a bit about kind of your own personal. So one, as a life as an entrepreneur, as a consultant, your own self-health is always important, but you're always putting customers first, right? Someone earlier said that an entire day of digital is exhausting, and it is. Sometimes it can be I actually find it can be almost too efficient, right? Because before you used to get to walk between buildings or walk between meetings. Now you literally go off one and it's a switch and you're on the other, and next thing you know, you've actually literally spent like 8 hours solid in front of a computer. So a bit of that team health, but also and customer health. But I'd be curious about how you manage your own personal health in this digital world of being a company owner and consultant. Any thoughts on that, Anthony? What do you do to keep yourself sane?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of running. I ran my first half marathon this summer. We had trained since January, obviously not expecting everything to shut down, but still stuck to it and ran it virtually now. You're not running with everybody else, so that was a little different. Still rewarding though. I find right now myself having to take more time for myself just because you know, you're sitting in front of a computer, you get the eye strain, you know, sometimes you get the headaches and whatnot. It's important, at least for myself, just to take a little more time for myself to almost just go for the run or go for the walk even, just keep moving, clear the head a little bit.
Be very deliberate about it, sounds like too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's important. I've noticed, mentally, and yeah, it's like the computer, but then there's also the pandemic itself, right? And there's the news, you're absorbing it, and you're having to be deliberate with how much you're taking in and how much you're actually exposing yourself to. That's been my challenge, but I mean, everybody has their own techniques and
I mean, I had heard somebody kind of mid-May, June, whatever, who in frustration said, why do we stop calling it working from home and call it what it is, living at work? And, you know, and that time warp thing that was happening at the beginning, I think we've all had to take that conscious step to separate, you know, because you could literally work 24/7 if you're sitting at home, right? And that you burn yourself out in an awful, an awful hurry. So it's creating that space. One of the things that I found was really useful. I already had a virtual assistant. I started actually using them properly. Gave over my in-basket and the scheduling of all of my meetings and everything else with very specific parameters. This is when I do meetings. And all of a sudden I wind up with 2 and 3 days a week when I don't have anything on my schedule, so I can actually do client work.
Wow.
Because somebody else is looking after it for me now. And I mean, that service costs me a few $100s a month, which in our world is nothing. But it's been a huge productivity boost, and it gives me the ability now to set aside time for exercise, set aside time for eating, right? Which otherwise we would not be doing, because you'd be stuck behind a computer. And like you said, you go from call to call to call to call to call. And the next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you haven't had breakfast yet.
Yeah, we've had a lot of great comments like that in the chat here.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. And if you actually, well, let's throw it out there. Is there any comments that we want some feedback on, or anybody want to jump in with some ideas on, especially, and I think we're kind of talking a bit about personal health a bit as well. And that was a great idea about the personal assistants, because I've been in and out of that world, and then, but I've never done it for my own kind of personal health. It's always been, I just had a volume of work, right? So that was a great tip. Any other ones there, Rosemary?
The biggest change that I made, and it absolutely probably kept me sane.
Well, anyone else have any comments or points on that there?
Well, I would add 2 things, Ron. One is stress is sourced by how we think. So I know for myself, if I looked, at least in the beginning, I'm finding a little bit more freedom now, but if I looked beyond 2 months out, my anxiety, my anxiety about not having financial security, not knowing where the business was, the money was going to come from, really created. So I was really disciplined to not look beyond 2 months out. Like I knew that that was my threshold. So increasing awareness about how you're thinking about, what's happening, I think is one of the biggest things that you can do for your mental health is be responsible for what you're thinking, be responsible for what you're telling yourself. And when something is coming at you, with a heaviness and a stress, talking it out or getting coaching on it or doing something to help, alter and create a shift in that paradigm.
Yeah. That's good. Toni, do you have anything to add on that?
To me, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the very basic levels is that safety and security, to love and belonging, self-esteem, and then self-actualization. And when panic hits for me, and COVID hasn't been as hard for me compared to other times when I had to pay my mortgage, but I hunker down and I focus on those safety and security needs. I just step it out day by day, focus on what I need to get done now in order to secure, like Trudy's saying, I don't try and think too far ahead, just focusing on the here and now in order to manage that anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. I'm catching out of the corner of my eye some of the comments comments going by our stand-up desk. So I have to say there are some things, and some practical things I totally recommend for your offices where you're not stuck sitting all day. And I think there's some of those going in, and I will say I'm literally standing right now. But you know what? I mean, it's some of the bad habits that you get into the office. It turns out the office wasn't so bad because you'd actually get up and go around. Some of the bad habits at your home office, like you're there for 18 hours a day instead of 8, right? So so I'd highly encourage some things in the office. Jeff, maybe if my office was not so close to the fridge, I would not have the problem of starving to death, but I walked by that fridge way too many times. So I will personally say that has actually been one of the worst things of COVID, is the fridge is too close. And if I have to go to the washroom or anything, it's there's the fridge. So I'm sure for every good or bad, there's a bad, and that food has been a bad one for me. So we got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to actually just ask one more question on the panel and then really throw it open to anyone that's here to either add a comment or question. But I'm going to throw this out. If you could do the last 9 months over again, what would you have done different now that you know what this whole world is? Because we had no chance to plan this, right? So now we can look back 2020 and say, if it happened again, here's what I would have done different, or even the same, just things that just worked out perfectly. So who wants to start? Jeff, you're on my screen, Jeff, so why don't you start?
What would I have done differently over the last 9 months? I'd have probably made the changes in terms of handing over the schedule and and you really using a virtual assistant properly. I'd have done that earlier. I mean, I did it out of desperation, and I'm going like, what the hell was I worried about, right? I think the other thing, if I could do things differently, we would have jumped into doing a lot of the virtual sales stuff in terms of webinars and things like that earlier, instead of waiting till we had to. Right. So that would have been something that I wish we'd have been started at 6 months ago, because we would have hit the ground running on this. That being said, I mean, the technologies are there. The technologies are cheap, and not using them is stupid. So we're never going to not do it this way again, I think. So it's been a good learning curve. And we're fortunate that we had work in the bank. We didn't have to worry about starving because we had contracts running in well into next year. So that's been very helpful. Gives us a runway to play on.
Yeah, that really was a difference between. I mean, we got no one here who's in the restaurant industry, but I feel for them because their hand was forced, right? Where I think a lot of consultants, everyone on this panel could find a different way of doing business, but it might be a whole different panel if we were talking about people directly in the service industry, right? Because it was tough for them actually. And I will say one of the things we started doing, but we've just been very purposeful about it, is supporting local little companies, because as much as pain we've had, they they've had a lot of pain, right? So that's and we have a community where they're really supportive, but yeah, it's one of the things that we made a point of. So Anthony, what if you could do it all over again, would it be anything different?
I don't necessarily, I can't really think of anything that I would do
Yeah.
different. When everything started to happen, I definitely cut down on the time that I was spending at the office. But for me, I stayed in routine and to a degree, to an extent. And, you know, I think what's happened is it's actually forced me to take a look at the business. So if this didn't happen, then I wouldn't have taken that look. So I can't really think of anything that I would have done differently. I think some opportunities have opened up for me because of what's happened, and it's made me look inside and assess things and make adjustments.
Well, sure, a bit of to almost what Trudy say, because the one thing you never normally do if you're busy is stop and take the time to do an assessment, right? So, I mean, I think that's one thing that I've heard a lot of people do is if they could do over again, and it's easy to say you'll get busy again and never do it, but actually I think this is a realization that just a pause to really self-reflect is actually really good for a lot of people, right, and companies. So and with that, Trudy, maybe you can expand. Is there anything you'd done differently, because you did talk about that pause, like unexpected as it was, how important it is, but would you do anything different if you had the chance again?
Yeah, so what's there is one of the things that happened after I got through that initial phase of transcribing everything to the new brand is I was exhausted. And so I really did rest and pause and reflect, which was important. I struggled to get back into routine. And that was one of the reasons actually for coming back to the office, Ron, was I was really, struggling creating structure and routine, which I know because I'm very disciplined when I have the structure and routine.
Yeah.
So I wasted some time without the structure and routine that if I had a do-over, that would be it. I, sort of motivate and ignite myself faster to have that to support, because I have a couple of things that I didn't get over the finish line. And now that I'm busy with client work, they're sitting there. So that was a missing, and it's not from a place of make wrong. It was just really stop for a while.
Yeah. Toni, do you want to any final words on do-overs if you could have?
There are a couple minor things, but I want to echo what Trudy and Anthony have said, that time at the beginning of COVID really inspired me to start putting into action some of the things that I'd been sitting on for so long for my business, and I got the opportunity to do that. But if anything that I could change to do differently is I would have upgraded all my equipment sooner. My laptop literally was on its last leg, and I had to get my hard drive, a professional back it up because it conked out on me. Things were going on the fritz. I had to replace my car battery because I live downtown. I didn't drive my car for 3 months. That's the only thing.
Isn't that interesting? Because I was in the middle. I had actually thankfully I bought a new computer right when this started. But then it became really urgent to get it set up, and I needed some work done, and everybody was doing the same thing, right? So there was a rush on technology, that's for sure. So I'm gonna actually, we've got about 10 minutes left. I'm just gonna throw it out. Do we have any questions, or actually people have just been dying to get a few words in that are here? Because I actually think, this is great. We have some great, amazing panel, but I actually think there's some great people on the line here who might actually have some comments after hearing all this that would really, and if there's any nuggets or anything you think would really add value to everybody, feel free to pitch in. Is there anyone else there that wants to join in there? I think Trevor, you had a few things going on there. I'm not sure if they were for everybody.
Yeah, I wanted to know what everyone's experience was with the online conferences and connecting with folks. The conferences I've been to mostly have been just sessions that you attend. So it's not like you're interacting with anybody but the presenter, and even sometimes not then.
One of the things that we've been, some of the conferences that I've been involved in, Trev, is they've purposefully created breakout rooms and other spaces. And pulled people apart and brought them back together and made that a conscious design element within the conferences to get more than just talking head and, you know, and death by PowerPoint. And I found that to be very, very effective because you get those table talks going on.
Yeah, I've been to 4 or 5 and only one of them did that. And I did find that effective.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would concur that. I've been to a few, and the breakout rooms are, it's almost a difference whether I attend or not, some of them, because they go to the breakout room, and a good facilitator in a breakout room, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny, it's these are the very things that we used to do back in, you know, corporate events, right? You go to a breakout room, but seem to actually, some of them may have better connected. A good facilitator would really get input. And then some of them, the expectation was when you went back to the bigger room, that group kind of had to present, which is fairly typical. But it's funny how personal it is when there's 300 people in a room and someone across the room is talking about their breakout room. You're not really engaged, but when that person's right in front of you on the screen, all of a sudden it becomes very conversational, which I found surprising, right? So anyone else have comments about conferences? And you can even tell us what we can do better at ReSourceYYC for panels and presentations.
Yeah, I mentioned I had some success with some conferences, but what I found the real success part was taking it out of the conference and following up, right? Connecting with them on LinkedIn, making that, starting that relationship building process. So it's, again, different mindset, but I think once people understand how to do conferences better, that it will become something that is just going to be something we all do because of the less costly way of approaching it.
And some conferences, actually, I do really like some of the digital tools that they've been able to, you know, in a digital world, it's just an app you can have, but the voting, the getting, you can actually get some real-time input that I actually don't think you can even do very well. I've seen it at a conference, but everybody digitally online has a mouse in their hand or a way to actually participate, right? So I've seen a few things like that. And Jeff, you talked about, I think one of them you had some really interactive type apps they'd applied to, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen different styles. A lot of the same stuff that they use in face-to-face conferences, right?
Yeah.
Where you've got polling and questioning and everything else, but in real time and in a virtual environment, so that those same tools apply. I mean, the one thing, like I said, I've been to the ones where, you know, where it's not, there is no interactivity as well. And there's design decisions that are made by the event organizers specifically around generating engagement. It's not because of a lack of technology, for sure. Yeah. All the stuff that you could use in a live environment, you can use online.
Yeah. Good. Anyone else want to weigh in? Have anybody been at a conference that just stood out, or some meeting that's just really engaged them that's memorable to share?
I'm in a program right now. It's a 5-month program and it's all virtual, Ron. And we're put into peer groups for support. And one of the things my peer group is doing is meeting 15 minutes earlier, just to personal chit chat, just to build a relationship. And then, you know, on the top of the hour, we get to the business of the agenda. And that's been really like fulfilling and enriching, given that I may never meet these women.
That's true.
In person.
Yeah, we've done one of the ones I just came out of was a fairly large group and from around the world. All of the breaks between the learning sessions were in breakout rooms where you'd be in a room with 5 other people and you'd be sitting having a coffee.
Oh,
right.
And were they? Did you choose, or were they forced?
No, they were just they generated them either randomly or they had some reason for putting people together in a room because of your background or whatever. And so that worked out really well. And you were forced then to have that level of interaction that you otherwise wouldn't have had. And they did the same thing at lunch.
Yeah.
Right. Where they all together. Okay. Lunch is and some people it would be supper or breakfast, but okay, for the next 45 minutes, we're going to have lunch.
Yeah.
So boom, you're at your table. There's where you're assigned for lunch. And then you'd sit there and again, you'd have these really cool conversations
Yeah.
that you otherwise would not have had because it was you'd be back into session. And I thought that's exactly what would happen in a live conference, only they've done it in a virtual thing. And
and I would add maybe even better virtually, because how many people have been in a conference room where you walk in and you scan all the tables and it's the same group of company people that came together, sit together and network together, and then they go back and say, well, wasn't that great networking? And actually the only people they networked with was the same people they actually work with all the time, right? So actually that, I mean, I could see it being a bit discomforting to people though, right? Because they would rather be in the same little lunch table with the people they already know. So yeah,
that's true. But I think one of the advantages of that is being a little bit uncomfortable is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for people to be a little bit uncomfortable. So they create the environment that allows that to happen is a really important thing when you're doing this kind of online stuff.
That could be the 2020 story for all the people, definitely recognize that people 2020 was awful for, but for everyone else, it was uncomfortable for, which is probably not a bad thing, right? Yeah. So good. Couple minutes left. One more question. I'll give one more question from the group, and then I got one more question to the panel, and then we'll wrap her up. Anyone else? Any questions out there? Well, I'll ask the last question. This is to the panel. Where do you see yourself and your company a year from now when the pandemic's over? What are you going to look like in a year from now? I'll start, Jeff.
Yeah.
We're all vaccinated. Life will be normal.
What the hell's normal, Rod?
Exactly.
I don't think life will ever be what it was before.
Yeah.
We'll never go back to the old way. So, we'll be somewhere between where we were and where we are now. I think for our business, when this is all over, we'll be consciously digital and consciously online, which we weren't before, right? It wasn't the cornerstone of our business model to do it this way. And I think that's going to change. It has to. And I mean, our cost base will go down because we're not traveling around. We'll have more time to do stuff because we're not necessarily jumping on airplanes for, to fly to Toronto or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That to me is going to be the biggest change. Yeah. I'm not going to get nearly as many frequent flyer miles as I used to.
I know, that sucks, eh? But you can take yourself digitally around the world.
Hopefully there's airlines left to use them on.
Exactly.
Yeah, Toni, I think the next thing will probably be teleportation, and we'll just skip airlines completely.
I'd rather be the first to take the vaccine than teleportation. Toni, what are you going to be like a year from now?
Well, I'm going to do a tiny shameless plug. And next fall, my book comes out, Digital Marketing Strategy through Kendall Hunt. I'm working with a US publisher, and it's for post-secondary.
Wow.
So I'm super excited about that. I've been working on it for a good 6 months or so, and it's like, okay, now I can maybe mention it a bit because it's becoming a reality. So I'm super excited about that.
So in a year from now, I'll be saying, I knew Toni before she was so famous. She wouldn't even get on one of our panels. We can't even book her.
My book be made into a movie,
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'm glad we got you while we can, Toni.
Who gets to play you, Toni, in the movie?
That's a good question. I was thinking, I don't know. I have to think about that.
Hey, so you go ahead. If you have a link or anything, feel free to post it in the chat. Or if nothing else, when it's official, let us know. We'd be happy to share the news.
Mm-hmm.
So
June.
Yeah, Anthony, a year from now.
Well, I think in my industry, I think things are going to come back. There's still things being built. I think people are getting tired of obviously being cooped up. I'm anticipating almost an explosion of everything.
Yeah.
That's my hope. That's my guess. On the business side of things, I I'm looking right now at just diversifying, perhaps doing a couple of smaller development projects. So creating my own opportunities as opposed to seeking them. And yeah, just pushing forward, staying consistent and staying in routine for sure.
Excellent. Well, we'll be watching for your future and your blogs. Blog about it there, Anthony. We'll be happy to post it on ReSourceYYC.
I appreciate that. I actually owe you guys one, so we'll work on that.
Perfect. There we go. Trudy, you get the last word. Trudy, a year from now.
Yeah, I see myself more expanded in terms of being adaptable and flexible, with my feet on the ground, really anchored in the business family work. I am going to be launching, because Partnership on Purpose was something I was working on. So I'm launching a virtual program online for women only called From the Bedroom to the Boardroom, which is about the or from the boardroom to the bedroom, pardon me. And that's about just how our instincts and our brain wiring shows up and, you know, creates unintended results sometimes. And so that'll be one of the new things, and everything else, I'll just let it show up and grab a hold of those opportunities as they emerge.
Excellent. And I suspect if you have a book titled From the Boardroom to the Bedroom, it might get bought for a lot of the wrong reasons, but you'll get people reading you. So good. So with that, I'd like
Congratulations, Tony.
yeah. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Definitely go to ReSourceYYC. There are some other panels, and I really thank the panel and everybody who participated today. This was lots of fun, and it was actually really fun connecting virtually in person. I really enjoyed it. And if you have any follow-ups, make sure you, if you want to connect with Rosemary at resource coordinator at resourceyyc.org, or go to our website, and if there's any follow-up from here, Rosemary will connect with you. Any final words, Rosemary?
Thank you for everybody for participating. We had some great conversations in the chat, and it seemed like everyone got a good little bit out of this. So we're really glad we could host this.
Good. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Go forth and conquer.
Best of everything.
See ya.
Thank you.